From a don't got money perspective, you still need to consider a vision, right? It may not be an end-to-end strategy that encapsulates a multitude of different departments and C-suites, but there should be an overall vision that we can start to ask ourselves, what can we do better with the means that we have today?
Hey, hey, what's going on, brother? How you
Not
doing?
much, man. Not much. How you been?
Good, good. So in today's topic, I just wanted to catch up with you on where to begin your digital transformation. The scenario that I'm faced with, so what a client of mine, they realize that they're a little bit behind the eight ball. Their clients have moved on in the way that they consume products. In place of accessing content or purchasing materials in a store, people are becoming, it's that Amazon effect. People are becoming very comfortable with purchasing off of their phone and having it delivered to their home directly. Especially in this pandemic situation, it's super convenient to purchase whatever you want and have it delivered to your home. Um, so it made me think of both, be it Fortune 500 companies that I'm referring to now, but also small, medium, and large companies. And anybody can digitally transform. And some of them, the need to transform is whether to compete, to stay relevant in the future, or to even continue to deliver services to customers at a reasonable price. The real
Agreed.
key pillar or difference that I find is when prompted with where to begin my digital transformation is whether you have money or you don't have money. And
Okay.
That's kind of the pillars that I'm seeing there. What do you think about that?
I usually get asked that question as if there's a divide, money or not money. So let's go through where we would begin. Like I have several methodologies that I use from a beginning, a digital transformation from strategy to prioritization to implementation. Let's go through that and let's see if there's any significant difference from a got money and don't have money perspective. Got money, what I normally start with is we have to establish the strategy, right? So that is a fundamental vision that leadership, users, anyone that needs to know has to be a part of these conversations because there is a goal, there's a vision that we want to reach, and there's going to be a significant change. Digital transformation usually from a large company that has money, there is some significant change, whether it's going to be through a process, through a product, which usually invokes technology advancement, and then cultural change. So the first thing that you need to do is establish a strategy. Now, I go about doing that using some of my training where I want to look at the flow, the current existing of a process. So whatever is decided that needs to be changed. So there's a vision that we need to change a certain concept of our business. I call it then where what we're trying to do is create that ideal future state. Okay, so that is simply talking, and this could be a strategy session, talking about what would be the goal that we want to achieve. If this is what we currently look like, our ideal future state would have high level workflow, maybe a storyboard, and it would consider what is, I use the terms value added, what is the concept that needs to be a part of this digital transformation to make it successful.
And to add on that, I find the success of the strategy being understood, especially something as perceived to be large, like a digital transformation. I find that the more simplistic the strategy can be communicated,
Mm-hmm.
the stronger effect it'll have in people buying into that strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Be
Mm-hmm.
it we need to deliver service online or to people's doors. Um, we need to enable people to purchase using cryptocurrency.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever the digital transformation is, the more simplistic it can be stated. The higher degree of adoption and kind of interest or momentum behind that strategy, especially if you're going over a very long, a couple year period of time.
Right, right. That's a that's a really good call because that segues into my second component because you gave several examples there. Let's say be able to pay with cryptocurrency. The next aspect I do is prioritize um, what we're implementing. Because what we do is we start unpacking that high level ideal future state and we start looking what is our current state. Right now we can't pay through cryptocurrency, so our our ability and system to have those kind of payments is not capable at this time. So we have to look at what is currently capable, like what can we currently do, what's our current state. So we're going to find there's several different kinds of not just improvement opportunities, but we're going to see the gaps that's preventing us from doing that. And it's not usually one particular hell, it's just this one component. We're going to switch that and then that works. We'll find fundamental gaps, at the beginning of this process, the middle, and then consequently several, other departments that are impacted by this that also have to make change. So why I call this a prioritization state is because we are start seeing essentially the different incremental changes or improvement options we have to do, and that is resolving the various gaps. And so what I use is a heat map, right? It's basically for those who work with me before, they've seen my heat maps. I love using these. It's very colorful. Red denotes a gap here, and you can see if you had a view of your workflow to be able to get to that end state where you pay with cryptocurrency. You'll see all the different components that needs to be resolved. So what does that mean? It means that we can't implement everything all at once. There probably has to be a different stage or prioritized approach. So at the end of coming out of that high level ideal state, and we're creating now our current state and transfer to a future state, we're looking at all the different components that we need to prioritize and eventually implement. So prioritization is probably the next step that I go to when trying to do that digital transformation strategy.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful, and I've seen people that prioritization is so key. Like if you're not organized, you're not going anywhere. Be it some organizations have called them MVPs, and or they break it into phases. And by MVP, I mean a minimum viable product. So for
Right.
the next 6 months, we're going to work on one particular object, just figuring out our source platform of cryptocurrency and have it connect with our payment process, for example. Um,
Exactly.
Breaking down into key MVPs or phases, and then ensuring that you can have incremental celebrations as each one of these phases are achieved. Yeah.
Good. And that's another segue into the third component, right? So once we've defined and prioritized that this is exactly what we want to do, we then have to consider what is our established outcomes and how do we measure that outcomes, right? So here's where, developing an approach. This is our project plan. This is the time. These are the lead times. This is where we defined that minimal viable product. I also like to use minimal viable process because it is still the future state process that we want to get to. But once we launch or once we implement, we start testing as well as get results and feedback, and sometimes we have to pivot or we have to adjust, and from there now that future state is coming a true component, but at the beginning it's a minimal viable process and product. But the key component that comes out of this is the measurable outcomes. So the goal, of course, is yes or no. Are we able to make payments through cryptocurrency? That's obvious way that we can measure a positive outcome. But there's going to be some other established KPIs. So remember, I was talking about those gaps, those improvement opportunities. As we resolve some of those improvement opportunities, they're going to have individual key performance indicators that allows us to say, is this working effectively? Is this working very, very efficiently? Once someone clicks to say, yes, pay now, is there a delay of 3 minutes before the screen refreshes, right? So the KPI would be, the ability for us to be able to refresh the screen. I'm going to give a really odd example. Refresh the screen as soon as someone clicks it within zero 0.2 seconds, which I think you said at the beginning of this conversation that people are used to having things easily purchased and received and shipped to. There's going to be standards out there that we can start putting our KPIs to work. So that is one of the third components. So we have to say, where do we begin? Obviously, verifying that this minimal viable product and process is working as confirmed, that this is how the outcome we're looking for. But then we have to start measuring, is this the result? Is it coming in the way that our customer experience is going to expect?
Yeah, I absolutely love that. Yeah, because it makes it real, it tangible, and something that can quickly get you to a yes or no scenario, or a degree it's kind of working, or a degree it's kind of not working.
Right.
Um, One key thing just to add to that, defining the approach and the established goals, is around ensuring you have the framework or the bodies or the energy to, beyond achieving the outcome and testing it, just be ready to make adjustments along the way, or additional adjustments.
Well
Um,
said.
yeah, because it's one thing to put, especially when you've got that money and you're spending a lot towards, our go live date is September 1st, and it's expected to do this, and we've had X amount of rounds of testing. Um, when you go live, ensure you have the energy in place. Not all the energy is just focused on going live, but ensuring you're able to catch the outcome wherever it lands.
Mm,
You've tested everything out, it's working perfectly, you've gone live with phase one, and then people start to use it, and you realize there's quite a lot of adjustment we have to make. So having that energy available, the bodies, the people, the manpower available to assist, regardless of the outcome, whether the outcomes are exactly as we want it,
mm.
exceeding our outcome, or behind the outcome, and there's adjustments to be made.
Well said. Well said. So those are my three. Those are three steps. Well, there are multiple steps there, but those are my three beginnings. We asked where I begin. I certainly have a strategy. Then we need to prioritize our action, and then absolutely we need to determine what the expected outcomes are and how do we measure success.
Mhm. Mhm. Now, from your line of sight, is there any variance, or is there any differences when it comes to organizations that don't have money but have to transform to survive?
Okay. Okay. I'm glad you asked this because my point of view is the steps that I outlined are exactly the same, regardless that you have money or don't have money. This is the approach that we would use. There might be some you know, unique rollout of different activities, but I would say it's relatively the same. And I'm curious to hear from comments from others if they feel different. From a don't got money perspective, you still need to consider a vision, right? It may not
Mhm.
be an end-to-end strategy that encapsulates a multitude of different departments and C-suites, but there should be an overall vision that we can start to ask ourselves, what can we do better with the means that we have today, right?
Mhm.
So that strategy and vision still needs to happen.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And at the same time, like, it's perfectly okay to not have the money. I remember my very first boss, he says, this was in government too. They said, we don't have the money, but we do have the time.
Mhm.
And so he totally changed our perspective on our ability to do something, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And I think that what might be helpful, especially in a don't have money scenario, is some criteria, almost that works like a quick win criteria, that will help build traction and help people realize that they can, in fact, um, incrementally do their digital transformation, even if they don't have money. So I'm going to
Right,
hit
right.
you with some criteria here. There's 5 of them.
Sure, sure.
The first one, it's something that is easy to implement, something that the team locally knows how to do. It's quick to implement, relatively soon, within a 30, 60, 90-day time period.
Okay.
Things that are reversible, so you can implement it or install it, or you can uninstall it. You can build an automated workflow and then just decide not to, just disable it. You're not going to use it.
Mm-hmm.
The next one is that it's inexpensive. So not very expensive to do, because in essence, you're just piloting something here. And then the fifth one is within the team's control. So something your team locally has the ability to do. That will enable it. That will enable the team to be able to take action on a great idea really quickly, try it out, see how it works over a period of time, and if it doesn't work out, decommission it. If it does work out, you've spent a little bit of time and you've been able to develop a product, a service, or something of value that will help on that journey towards digital transformation.
Yeah, I
Um,
love that criteria. I love that criteria. I would use that exact same order. So we talked about before that we established strategy. The next step is those prioritizations. That's where you actually use that criteria. So the example I gave you of looking at the current state and seeing those multiple gaps and improvement opportunities, every time you see a gap, you can go through that criteria and establish, hey, is this a quick win or is this a larger undertaking? I sometimes like to use, is this complex or is this complicated? Hence all the criteria that you mentioned, right? It has to be greater than 90 days to establish. There's no going back. It's not reversible. It is not easy to implement, meaning there is going to be a lot of undertaking from multiple departments, multiple users to make this change. While a complicated, sometimes, I mean, it's a little tongue in cheek, but sometimes we find what was complicated is not necessarily complicated. Once we go through that criteria that you listed, it's basically, oh, do I need to have a better understanding of Sean's work? If I look at the workflow, Sean's the direct input to me. So his output is my input. Now, do I have to better understand Sean's workflow in order for me to make a quick win and establish? An example that comes to mind is Sean emails me 5 times a day the status of a certain activity. And I know this is really simplest solution, but if I understood that from Sean's perspective, he does not want to email me 5 times a day, nor do I want to receive 5 emails a day. But if we established, a variable that, hey, Carl, the status update is going to be populated at 9, 12, and 3, and feel free to go in to look at a dedicated location for that. That negates any emails from me. Now, what we once thought was complicated, and there's no way for Sean not to send me those emails, and there's no way that I can't exist without those statuses, we now realize there's a solution that can be easily fixed. So I absolutely love that. And that's why I say that prioritization component still can exist with no money. And these are some of the outcomes you get out of that.
So I guess our bottom line at the end of the day is, regardless if you have money or you don't have money, you can in fact execute your digital transformation. You can compete and you can find a way to strategize, prioritize, and then implement towards those goals.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious to hear what other people think. I fundamentally believe that it isn't a deterrence that you have no money, that you can't do digital transformation. I fundamentally agree and think that there is a way to do the solution. And what is that you said? You may not have the money, but you have the time.
That's right.
I love that. Is that your mentor? Because I'm going to definitely use that quote in one of my future facilitations. I love that concept. And that's true. That's absolutely true. I should also say that sometimes, even from a vision down to prioritization and then implementation and ultimately measuring success, I will say that, like, we're talking about methodologies and tools, right? Where there's a certain structured way that we do this. And in some cases, if that does not exist and you don't have the likes of us supporting that, there are ways that you can go from a vision to a quick win improvement opportunity. Actually, we did once at my one retail location I was managing, where there was just a high level question from a vision. So our vision is to reduce the amount of time it takes from a customer to receive their product once they've ordered. And within that step, there could be multiple departments that are involved. And the question, the vision could say, well, how is it that you can take out 5 minutes out of your process within that whole end-to-end process? And that way, you're not looking at a whole grand view, right? So your leadership saying we need to shave this off by 30 minutes, but your perspective, your particular input within this process, even if you don't have the ability to identify all the gaps, you yourself know your world. And if there's a way that I can shave off 5 minutes, right there, that is a great transformational change. And so that's something you can also go. That's just a bonus I put out there for those that are seeing, well, great, Carl and Sean, great examples, but I don't have these tool sets that you're mentioning, or someone like yourself to facilitate. Here's some way you can go about doing that as well.
Absolutely love that. Right on, man.
Okay, man.
Cool.
Another one down.
Another one down in the books. All right.
Okay. All right.
Time.
All right. Thanks, Sean. We'll talk to you soon, eh? Okay, man.
Bye-bye.
Peace.